I've been camping for most of my life, but there's one trip that is still stuck with me. Spoiler alert, nothing actually happened, at least nothing I can explain. Still, it was super weird, and I haven't gotten a good answer when I shared it. I live in South Carolina, and every spring I try to get out for a solo trip at least once before the weather breaks. That year I decided to go a little further than I normally would. I followed a series of dirt roads past the usual spots, just seeing where they led me to. Eventually I ended up on a narrow track that looked like it didn't get much use. I dropped down into an area near the creek surrounded by thick woodland. It was a good setup. No other cars, no trash, no signs of anybody had been there at least recently. I parked, set up, and got a fire going. Everything was normal. But not long after I settled in, I started to get that feeling that I wasn't really alone. Nothing obvious, just a constant awareness that didn't really go away. And I know you know the feeling I'm talking about. The woods were quiet, which is what you want when you're poaching. Not completely silent, but missing that usual background noise. Every so often I'd catch movement in the trees, just these quick shifts that disappeared as soon as I focused on them. I figured it had to be the animals or maybe just the wind. But still that feeling stayed, that undeniable sensation of being watched. I finished my usual camp chores while the sun went down and did my best to just ignore it. I settled in the chair and tried to relax, but that feeling did not go away. If anything, it got worse once the sun really started to fade. And that's when I noticed what was missing. There's no bugs. It didn't hit me all at once, but then I noticed it. No crickets, no hum, nothing rising up with the dark like it always does. Even all the birds had gone quiet now. The whole place felt dead in the water. Paired with that feeling that I'd had all evening, like I was being watched, all of it was putting me on edge. My first thought was immediately that it was a predator, something big enough to clear everything else out. It's not uncommon for a bear or a big cat to comb through an area, and every other animal will evacuate immediately. Now I'm not new to this, so I didn't panic. I walked back to the truck, opened the door, and pulled out my .45 from the console. I checked it, set it on the table within reach, then grabbed the 12 gauge from the back and leaned it up against the wheel well, right where I could get to it if I needed it. That made me feel a little better. This isn't a moment of pride, but as I mentioned, my intent was to poach. I know what you're saying, I know what you're thinking. It's illegal, it's shitty, but when you live out here, shooting a few squirrels and coyotes really ain't the end of the world. And I don't waste it. I keep the pelts, make stew from whatever meat I can get. Still, when you're hunting illegally, you gotta be careful and extra aware of your surroundings. I turned back towards the fire and took a step, and that's when I saw. There's a man standing behind the fire pit, far enough that the light was only catching his silhouette. I froze, and for a second I honestly thought maybe I was just seeing things. Then he raised his hand slowly, like he knew exactly what I was thinking. "Hey," he said. "Didn't mean to startle you." My pulse kicked hard, and I hadn't even heard him walk up. I hadn't heard anything, and now there was just someone speaking to me. "We're just passing through," he added, taking a careful step forward. Then two more shapes moved behind him. They came out of the trees one at a time, all dressed the same. Camouflage, chest rigs, helmets, radios clipped in. Night vision mounted up top, rifles slung tight to their bodies, not sloppy or thrown together. Everything looked calculated and professional. They were geared up like real military operators. Part of me panicked. Were they game and fish? Surely the forest rangers didn't employ RoboCop super soldiers for nighttime orbs and operations. For a few moments I thought these guys were law enforcement and were here to royally fuck my night up. The first guy kept talking. "We're just running an overnight exercise in the area, heading back in a few hours. We're actually on the return ruck right now." I didn't say anything. I was still trying to process how long they'd been out there, and by the sounds of it, they weren't the police. "Are you army or something?" I finally asked. "Yeah, something like that," he said, nodding toward my cooler. "Just looking for a little morale boost." "Morale boost?" I said. "Yeah, man. You got any alcohol?" It was such a normal question that I almost laughed. Was I being fucking robbed? Yeah, I said. Beer, and I got a couple of bottles of whiskey. Honesty is the best policy when guys rolling into the camp are carrying M4s and enough ammo to sack a small town. There was a pause, and I thought about the pistol sitting on the table, just within reach. For a second, I considered grabbing it, not raising it, just having it in my hand. They were armed, up in my business, and I felt like a dumbass for having firearms, but not readily available. Before I could move, the guy's tone shifted just a hair. Don't reach for that gun on the table. I went still. It was calm, a clear command. Out of instinct, I glanced back toward my truck. There was another one of them standing there, half in the dark, right between me and the shotgun. I hadn't even seen him move into position. He was just kind of there, flanking me, interrupting my path to my weapon. These guys were good. They'd been watching me, probably since I got here. The first guy then pulls out this thick roll of cash from his pocket and held it up. We'll trade you 1 bottle of whiskey, 6 beers, and whatever food you're willing to part with. It was a lot of money too, more than made sense for what he was asking for. I hesitated, then nodded. All right. It was better than being robbed. I grabbed a bottle, a 6-pack, a bag of jerky, a pack of bratwurst from the cooler, and handed it over. My hands felt steady, but everything else in me was shaking like a leaf in the wind. He then passed me the cash without even counting it. Appreciate it. Up close, they looked a lot more put together. No wasted movement, nobody talking unless they had to. One of them was still scanning the woods like the whole time, using his night vision to see everything. You guys can hang out if you want, I said, mostly out of reflex. Use my fire to cook if you need to. He shook his head. No, we got a few miles left. Need to be back before sunrise. Right. He gave me a nod, shook my hand, then turned away. The others were already moving. Within a few seconds, they slipped back into the trees, heading off in the opposite direction they'd come from. And just like that, they were gone. I spent the rest of the evening wondering what they were doing and how long they'd been doing it for. Obviously, I rolled into their training when I chose my campsite, but what training was that? Military, government, private sector? Good old boys just training for the end of the world? Were they dangerous? Did they even point their guns at me, deciding if I was a target? Lots and lots of questions that night, but no answers. I finished my camping trip and didn't see any other signs of those guys. Didn't hear any machine gun fire from the woods either, just another South Carolina mystery. One thing I will tell you though, those guys just dropping into camp put the fear of God into me that night. That was the last time I ever had the intention of poaching a wild animal.